Think other Democrats are watching their words?
I think it's certainly possible, but I'm not sure. I mean, I cannot think of or point to any individuals who have said that. I do think that there are Democratic members of Congress who are preparing for that possibility.
How do they prepare?
I think they look to the possibility of litigation. I think they're saying, do we have the best teams possible in order to carry out our work?
Some Republican, or many perhaps, will be watching this, listening to this, and thinking, wait a minute, actually, you're the ones who are prosecuting us. You are the guys who are weaponizing the Justice Department. How would you respond to somebody who may be thinking that?
In what way?
The rising star of the Democratic Party, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, suddenly appeared rattled when an NPR host boldly pierced through her usually polished narrative. And that's exactly why this moment landed so differently. If there one newsroom you'd never expect to confront AOC head-on, it NPR, yet here we are. The questions were sharp, the tension unmistakable. Which raises the real question, was this just a coincidence, or is Trump pressure over federal funding subtly shifting the atmosphere inside the network? Let's break it down.
I'm interested if you or your fellow Democrats are at all feeling intimidated or silenced or anything.
I'm not. I think it's important to call this administration's bluff. I think that this is what authoritarians do. I think this is what kleptocracies do. I believe that this is what corrupt administrations do. They rely on the illusion of power, on the suggestion of coercion in order to try to get people to comply in advance. And I think that one of our largest responsibilities is to not comply in advance. If they want to do these things, they can go ahead and do them and let the American people see what they intend to do.
If you're hearing this interview for the first time, you might walk away thinking America is on the brink of authoritarianism because that the left favorite play turn every minor inconvenience into a national crisis. But this is where things really start to ignite. The host dropped a simple yet razor-edged question. Does the left actually feel silenced? And before AOC could even begin to answer, there it was a pause. A long, unmistakably uncomfortable pause. She knew this wasn't something she could spin. She couldn't dodge it, couldn't inflate it into drama, and couldn't bluff her way through without sounding ridiculous. And just when you think the tension maxes out, the moment somehow gets even better.
Some Republican, or many perhaps, will be watching this, listening to this, and thinking, wait a minute, actually, you're the ones who are prosecuting us. You are the guys who are weaponizing the Justice Department. How would you respond to somebody who may be thinking that?
In what way? In what way? Is the very presence
Putting Trump on trial would be their example, I suppose.
Yes. I mean, here's the deal. In the United States, there is a jury where we are judged by our peers, and he was found guilty in court on 34 felony charges. If people want to say it was weaponized, I mean, it is hard-pressed to say that there's a partisan argument for that.
And there it is, another pointed question cutting straight through the DNC latest talking points. Democrats claim Trump is weaponizing the justice system, yet critics argue they spent years doing the very same thing to him. But hear the twist. Listen closely to AOC in this interview and to her critics. It sounds almost like an admission that the left applied legal and institutional pressure throughout Trump's presidency. She frames it as accountability, but the implication sits plainly between the lines. So if Trump is now responding with the same tactics, where the shock, you can't play the game, rewrite the rules, and then complain when the other side runs your own playbook. What fair for one is fair for the other. Then the interviewer pivoted to immigration, and AOC's reaction was something else entirely.
To what extent is immigration as an issue part of your problem with working class voters?
I mean, I guess my question would be what does the word problem mean?
People voting for the other side and not for you.
Yeah.
Feeling that Democrats are not serious about the issue in ways that concern them.
I think that we have a problem on immigration because of the lack of progress that we've had on this issue. And as we know, Republicans weaponized that lack of progress. Of course, there was famously a bipartisan bill last year that the Republican majority in the Senate and also in the House were willing to pass. President Biden was willing to work with them on it. And Donald Trump said, do not solve this problem.
Now this is where things get genuinely interesting. For all the lofty promises and polished moral rhetoric, critics argue Democrats fell short of addressing core immigration challenges when they had the chance. And when Vice President Kamala Harris was tasked with helping manage border issues, those same critics say the situation didn't simply stall, it deteriorated quickly. The result, they claim, was one of the most difficult border moments in recent years, with surge after surge and no durable, long-term strategy in sight. Instead of prioritizing the concerns of everyday Americans, critics contend the DNC poured its energy into symbolism and sweeping language about immigration, while the communities most affected by the strain were left feeling unsupported. Eventually, political reality caught up.
It is a problem not just for Democrats, it's a problem for the entire country that Republicans do not want to solve any sort of issue with immigration. They are completely uninterested in addressing undocumented people, in addressing a path to citizenship.
Well, they do want to address undocumented people by removing them. I mean, that's what the president is attempting now.
And I've got to say, that pushback from the NPR host hit harder than anyone expected. Because, like him or not, Trump supporters argue he's shown more determination and follow-through on immigration than any recent leader. In their view, he'd been aggressive about targeting undocumented immigrants who slip through the system, disrupting the routes cartels and smugglers rely on, and reinforcing the border in ways previous administrations only talked about. You can debate his style endlessly, but supporters insisted hard to ignore how relentlessly he pursues results.
Why do you think this issue did seem to be a political loser for Democrats among key groups and key constituencies, if what you say is true?
I think that a lack of a path to citizenship in the United States, the lack of addressing comprehensive immigration reform, creates a large population of undocumented people in the United States. We have a large population of undocumented people in the United States. Overwhelmingly, it is not because they crossed the southern border of the United States. It's because they came here in a documented fashion and overstayed a visa and became undocumented. And it is the lack of ability for us to expand paths to citizenship, modernize paths to citizenship over decades that create this bubbling issue.
I've honestly never seen AOC look this unsettled in an interview, not in the way we're watching unfold here. For a moment, you can almost hear the gears turning as she tries to keep her talking points from falling apart. Then she drops the line that really makes you stop. She claims there's no clear path to citizenship, and that this is why America is facing an immigration crisis. Critics immediately pounce on that. No clear path. They point to examples like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who arrived with little more than a dream and eventually became a U.S. citizen. Or Republic. Ilhan Omar, who came to the country as a refugee and ultimately made her way into Congress. To those critics, the takeaway is simple. The path to citizenship exists, complex, lengthy, and imperfect, but millions have successfully navigated it. And they argue that when the left gets hit with tough questions that highlight inconsistencies in their messaging, they default to denial. They blur the details, hoping the contradictions slip by unnoticed.
Republicans are allowed to weaponize.
And you have voters in places like Arizona, which is a swing state that Democrats lost, or Colorado, which is generally a blue state, saying there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of lawlessness.
Yes.
I don't know what to do here. Who's looking out after me?
And I think when that is paired with divestment from the social safety net, when that is paired with lack of progress on minimum wage, when that is paired with rising costs of living, it sets the stage for a strong man to point to any marginalized group and say it's their fault.
AOC is now trying hard to distance herself from the chaos critics say her own party left behind during the Biden years. To those critics, it's almost ironic watching her act as though she played no role in the border turmoil. They argue that Democratic policies weakened enforcement and contributed to the spike in illegal crossings. And now, just as Trump pushes to reassert control, They claim Democrats are suddenly outraged, attacking him for trying to fix a problem they spent years downplaying.
Holman was upset, I suppose, because he felt that you were giving advice to people who were here illegally. Were you?
I was giving advice to all of my constituents.
He said he was going to report you, or even that he did reach out to the Department of Justice. Have you heard from the Department of Justice?
I have not, and I intend on reaching out to the Department of Justice to inquire.
Really? What would your question be for the Department of Justice?
Well, there is a member of the Trump administration who is threatening and seeks to open an inquiry, and are you going to do it?
What would you learn? What do you hope to learn from that exchange?
I think it's important to know where this administration stands and if they intend on using political intimidation to silence their critics.
You can almost see AOC expression change the moment the interviewer pressed her on why she offers advice to people living in the country illegally. It was one of those rare, unscripted moments where her polished talking points collided with reality. In one breath, she insists Democrats are serious about confronting illegal immigration, calling it both a policy challenge and a humanitarian issue. Yet in the next, her comments come across to critics as guidance for those here unlawfully. And that's where the contradiction lands.
Do you think there is a real risk of lawmakers being investigated, charged, arrested?
Potentially. I mean, we see that this administration is certainly wielding that threat, and we will have to see if they intend on carrying out their threats. If they are to be believed for what they are publicly suggesting, then the answer would be yes. But we will only find out if we call their bluff.
Do you think other Democrats are watching their words?
I think it's certainly possible, but I'm not sure. I mean, I cannot think of or point to any individuals who have said that. I do think that there are Democratic members of Congress who are preparing for that possibility.
No one is being silenced here, and at times that point is stated clearly. Free speech doesn't guarantee freedom from consequences. When someone spreads reckless, defamatory, or blatantly false claims, accountability is part of the equation. Over the past few years, critics argue we've seen a wave of exaggerated narratives, misinformation, and politically charged allegations thrown around with little to no responsibility taken. Entire storylines were built on shaky ground, with false alarms sounded just to score political wins. So when Trump signals plans to pursue legal action against those he believes misrepresented him or tried to damage his presidency, critics ask, why is that suddenly treated as a crisis? They argue it mirrors the very principles Democrats often champion: justice, accountability, and the rule of law. In their view, Democrats help normalize using legal mechanisms to hold people responsible, and what's happening now is simply the natural continuation of that precedent. Consequences aren't censorship, they say they're consistency. By the end of the interview, critics felt AOC's talking points were stripped back, revealing contradictions they believe the left can't avoid anymore. NPR unexpectedly tough questioning only highlighted that gap. And if some believe Democrats helped create this environment, and now fear the same level of scrutiny, critics see that as a problem of their own making. The era of one-sided narratives, they argue, is coming to an end. And that brings us to today's video wrap-up. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this.